Is it possible to turn the Digitech Screamin Blues into a pedal that can rival the Boss BD2? Well, today we're going to find out. I'm going to be taking this cheap pedal and trying to give it the boutique twist. Let's see if we can make it scream. This is everything we're going to use for our mod today. Of course, we've got our tropical fish caps, because I know you all love me putting tropical fish caps in SMD pedals. Get on. And then we've got some non-polar caps to replace some of these over here. As you can see, our Screamin Blues is no longer blue. Apologies, Robert. Robert's the guy who sent me this to mod. Apologies if you wanted the blue pedal. You kind of give me free reign on what to do with it. So, of course, I went with nitrocellulose Dakota Red. And then we have a Brazilian rosewood foot pad with a bit of tattoo artwork on the front. Put that to one side, and this is the PCB here. As you can see, it's mostly SMD, but not all. And handily enough, the components that we're going to be changing today are not SMD, so that's helpful. The three components we're going to be changing for our tropical fish caps are C38. I'm only changing this one. I'm changing it for a like for like. I don't like these green meanie caps, and I know they come in Boss pedals from back in the day, and they probably sound great, whatever. I just don't like the way that they look, so I'm going to be changing that one out. And then we're also going to be changing C21, which is right back here, and C20. We're going to be basically, these will beef up the tone, so it's kind of like the Keeley mod on the fat switch, only we're going to put it in permanently for them. And then these three electrolytics here, they're all coming out, and we're going to run wires from the board and attach them to these three here that are going to live underneath the hood, because as we all know from my other mods and stuff, no one uses a battery, so I'm getting rid of the battery, and I'm going to mount these three caps in there and run the wires through. First on the chopping block is C20, which is right here, and we're going to be changing that for a 47 NF cap. Now, I know the Keeley mod is a 33 NF in this position for the blues driver. However, I think this is going to benefit because we've got the more interactive tone stack. I think this is going to benefit from having a bit of a higher value in there. So this is coming out first. As ever, I'm not going to be removing the caps with desolder braid like I should. I am just going to wet the tip. Well, hey, wet the tip t-shirt still available, people. I'm getting a great response back from those who have bought them so far. Thank you to everyone who's bought a wet the tip t-shirt. I know it's a bit stupid, but it's become my catchphrase, hasn't it? Yeah, so I'm going to do the usual way. If you've seen my videos before, all I do is I wet the tip, heat up the pad, and then manipulate the cap side to side until it pops out like that. Disclaimer, that is absolutely the wrong way to do it. You should use desolder braid or a solder pump, desolder pump, and it's much easier to do, and it also protects your board, but I'm lazy, as I've explained before. Now, handily, I've used my Nipex snips to bend these legs into place, being careful because, as ever, these old tropical fish caps are quite sensitive, so if you bend them too aggressively, they just disintegrate because they're so old. I like to leave one leg longer than the other, and that is because I'll slot that leg in first with a bit of heat, and then heat the other leg up and push that in further. But it looks like I'm going to have, yeah, these pins are quite small on this one, so we may have a problem, but we'll see. Nah, no problem, perfect. And then all I do is just heat each one up, and I know we should just desolder them. There's always going to be someone comment, and I do thank you for your comments. If anyone wants to tell me off for doing this wrong, I do appreciate it. And I love the discussion as well. You come up with a better way and tell me how wrong I am. I love the debate. Right, so once I've got them in, all I like to do then is just wet the tip a bit, and then just tidy up the solder joints one at a time. There we go. And then if we trim off the excess, that is our first tropical fish cap now in place. Next cap to be changed is going to be C38, which is just here. This is a 22 NF cap. I'm changing it for the 18 NF cap just because I've got 18 NF caps. It should be 22, but I really like these tropical fish caps and I've got loads of them. So I'm going to remove this and replace it with that in the same manner. There is C38 now changed. One thing I will say is, compared to the Boss PCBs, you'll notice that here, I don't know if you can quite see it on the camera there, the traces, or the signal traces, are tiny on this. They're really fragile. So this is a little bit of a little bit awkward compared to modifying the Boss pedals I've modified in the past. So just be careful when you're heating up these traces. Now we're going to go on to C21, which is back here, and I'm going to be putting in this 22 NF cap. I reclaimed this, oddly enough, from one of the Roberts radios that I converted into Ruby amplifiers some time ago, but someone had replaced one of the caps in there for this one, so now it's getting reused in this. Well, this was an interesting one to change. I've had to leave it a bit long just because there weren't much space in there to get the cap, so I have left it a bit long. But as you can see, the pots start up here, so there's loads of space below. It's not going to make any difference. Now onto our 3 electrolytics. I don't think these are going to change the sound in any massive way. I prefer to use non-polar wherever you can get them in, and preferably not electrolytics, wherever you can get them in. So I'm going to replace these with them, but generally it just reduces the noise a little bit as opposed to any big changes in sound. And I figured while I'm in here, I might as well just do something else. There's our 3 electrolytics out of the picture. Now I'm just going to run some wire. I'll make it long enough so that then it can go through the enclosure and get to these caps. And I'll just cable tie each capacitor wires together to make sure that I don't mix them up, which again could ruin the circuit if I cross connect them. There we have our 3 sets of wires for our 3 replacement caps. Now I'm going to go ahead and mount these caps inside the battery housing. For some reason, this battery housing, the foam in it was absolutely stuck down well. Whoever put that foam in there weren't messing about. I absolutely couldn't get it all out. So now to mount these caps, I'm going to mount, I want to mount them in this way round. I might have to put some heat shrink on this one, and then these 2 this way round. And I'm just going to use steel reinforced epoxy, or JB Weld, as everyone knows I love to use my JB Weld. I'm going to use that to hold them in place. Just give the legs a quick clean on these electrolytics. They tend to pick up a bit of crud. Not too sure why, but they are new caps. Anyway, they're Elner branded, if anyone's interested. So I'm going to mount, what I'll do is I'll mount them in and I'll leave the legs long, and then when I've fit it in the PCB back in it, I don't know why I'm pointing over there as if you can see it, because you can't see it, but when I fit the PCB back inside, I'll just run the wires through here and then connect them up, one to each set. So to fit them in, I've Blue Peter style pre-mixed up some of this epoxy. I'm just going to put it on there quite liberally. And then, just because I want it to dry fast, I'm going to put a dab of super glue in there just to hold it in place while the steel reinforced epoxy dries. And then I'm going to repeat the process for the other 2 caps. Huge thank you to everyone that supported the show so far this year. I can't believe how much we've grown. I'd really appreciate it if you could do this little favour for me and just click the subscribe. My analytics show that over 60% of people watching this show still don't subscribe. Or if you want to further support the show, we have these new Beano font caps back in stock. Now that that's done, it's time to install the PCB back inside the enclosure. This one's a bit weird. So this enclosure, you slot the PCB in, as opposed to there being holes in the side that you know, put your jacks through and then tighten them down. You kind of slot them on, which makes it a little bit awkward, in my opinion. I tell you what I have noticed. We definitely don't need this. Apologies, Robert, if you do use your, or did use a 9-volt power supply, because that's gone. Oops. Yeah, it's kind of awkward the way that they've got this laid out. I much prefer to have a just to have a regular enclosure, but there you go. It's like they've almost overcomplicated it just for the sake of it, which in my opinion was not necessary. So first, I should have really recorded me taking this apart. I stripped it down hastily while I was moving workshop, thinking I was going to get this video filmed, and I just didn't. So anyway, before I do anything, I'm going to slot my wires through. Then I'm going to line up the knobs, the pots, the knobs. And you kind of have to unscrew the, I mean, I could have took them right the way off, couldn't I? Let's face it. But unscrew them and slide them over, which, you know, it keeps it all together, and you're not going to lose anything while you're doing maintenance on it, but it's kind of annoying. I have a feeling that I've put too much bloody nitro on this and it won't clip back together. Fantastic. And there we go. I'm just being an idiot and I haven't put them in there. So, and as you see, the PCB actually screws, well, it's the base plate screws go through the PCB and screw it all in, so it is kind of more stable, I suppose, or more secure in there. I'll just hand tighten these up so it doesn't go anywhere. But it's all a big faff, and they use Allen bolts for this. And if anyone's got Allen keys handy, that's great. But if you just want to strip your pedals down, it's much easier if you have just a regular screwdriver. So I'm going to replace them with regular screws because it annoyed me trying to take them apart. So I should have really done my heat shrink a little bit longer than that, but there you go. Now I am going to heat shrink the ends inside here, at least for this cap here, because it's right close to the enclosure edge there, and I don't want to foul the enclosure and end up with it shorting out, and then me chasing my tail trying to figure out what's wrong with it, as if that's never happened before. Haha. Oops, and I've just snipped that twice when I didn't need to. There you go. Well done, Joe. Well too aggressive with the snips there. So for these, I like to tin it and then make it a little hook around with the bare part of the wire. So you have that. Usually I make a hook with this bit as well, but because I've glued them in, I don't really want to start like bending the legs and stuff and causing stress. So I'm just going to hook it over the end like so, and then solder it in place. To trim the excess now, usually what happens at this point is I've forgotten to put the heat shrink on, so I have to unsolder it, then put the heat shrink on. But by some miracle, I've remembered today. Maybe that's a good omen and this thing will work first time. Who knows? And then of course, I know, use a heat gun, Joe, not a lighter, but there you go. I haven't smoked for years now, and any excuse to use a lighter and I'm in there. Right, now the other leg of this cap, much the same. I'm going to try and run all the wires down this back edge, and then that way I'm not like creating loads and loads of wire runs, because it kind of annoys me. There we are. Now I'm going to repeat this process for this cap and I'm muddling them up there, and then these other two wire sets for this cap and this cap, and then we're pretty much good to go. There's our 3 electrolytic caps now in place. I'm going to move on to building up the enclosure and adding the knobs. So first things first, to build up the enclosure, or to put the cover on, this is the weird arrangement that we've got going on here. So I don't know why they didn't just do what Boss did and have 2 screws that hold the top bit in place. They had to go this weird way. So we've got a spring in the middle. It blew my mind, this, with these 2 bits on the end. Nope, the other way around. Look at that. I'm getting it the wrong way already. And these bits fit through here. I mean, what? You'll see what I mean. Like, how overcomplicated do you want to make it? So there's that. I mean, it's not a bad design, but it is a bit weird. Then we've got our regular spring for our foot switch, which goes on here. And then to actually press down on this thing here, if you can see in that hole there, there's just a tiny little dip switch. Not the best way of doing it, in my opinion. But then again, these aren't expensive pedals, so you know, you've got to save the money somewhere. And all it is that this plunger touches the top of that, and that's what creates the, or make and break the switch even, creates the. Now this is awkward, so, and there we have it. As far as knobs go, this is another annoyance of mine. I don't like these plastic pots at all. They're just awkward. But the actual knobs are D handle or D shaped. It just makes it awkward because they're so slim and close together. You've got to try and find a D handle knob that is slim enough to fit on here, and it kind of limits what you can do with it, which is annoying. But luckily for me, or luckily enough for Robert, I have these cool Bakelite knobs. These ones actually are the ones that come on the old Kingsley pedals, and I love them pedals, so I'm going to go with these. There we have it. Our Screamin Blues is no longer blue. It is now, in fact, it's Dakota red. Bit of Brazilian rosewood on there, some white knobs to match our skull, and I hope Robert is happy with the aesthetics of this pedal, because it's clearly different than it was before. Now the question is, does it sound any different? Now that I've well and truly annoyed the internet by putting tropical fish caps in a cheaper pedal, I know you guys love that. Now that we've finished that, it's time to move on to the sound sample. Now I would love to know what you think of the sound sample now compared to what it sounded like before. Please let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this episode, you're going to love this episode on how to mod a Boss BD2.